You've had Wendy's Nuggs dipped in sauce, but have you had them covered in sauce? Wendy's new Spicy Nuggs take the crispy and spicy nugs you love and turn them up to 11. Choose between flavors like buffalo, honey barbecue, garlic, parm, and of course the spicy variations of all of those flavors, which I highly, highly, highly recommend because we love saucy takes here and spicy and saucy takes. And we're going to have a bunch of those today. Or if you're a true heat seeker, try the spicy ghost pepper. I dare you. That's 7 delicious ways to try the nugs you already love. Pick a flavor, grab some napkins, and prepare to nug like you have never nugged before. For a whole new way to nug, it's Gotta Be Wendy's at participating U.S. Wendy's. Welcome to Andy and Ari on 3. It is a Wendy's Saucy Take Wednesday. Ari is bringing the sauce today, and I hope that he has brought some extra sauce. I had one fairly saucy take, and it came true last week where 2 undefeated teams did go down. Not the 2 I thought. One of the ones I thought, but I'll take it. Ari, how we doing? You've been in the kitchen.
Yes, I have been in the kitchen. I didn't drop a knife on my foot this morning either.
Thank God.
Things are looking up. I'm in my Sabrina Carpenter era. I don't know if I'm sure you have been hearing that a lot.
I have a 13-year-old daughter, Ari. I know every Sabrina Carpenter song.
Let me tell you something. I got to tell you, because I just discovered the record last night. Like I listened to it on my own volition because I'm trying to find things to play for my daughter in the car. And that entire record is electric. Like I'm like, who's the cute boy with the white jacket and the thick accent? Ooh. Like,
have you heard the country song? She's got a country song called Slim Pickens.
I'll give it a try. I was just doing the record so far.
She won my heart by making fun of the guy because he doesn't know the difference between there, and there.
Okay.
As in THEIR, THERE, and THEY''RE. She had me right there.
Andy, I'm 12 hours into this. Purely electric stuff. Like I'm into it. And I'm a rap.
That has been your 13-year-old girl record review from Ari Wasserman.
Yeah. By the way, for adults too, because I'm not listening to it for my child. I'm listening to it for me. Really into it. But yeah, I have some saucy takes. I have one that I'm a little bit nervous will go off the rails a little bit, so I'm going to try to keep us on track. River helped talk me through it, and yeah, I'm excited for the show today. So let's get into it.
Let's do it. All right, give me saucy take number 1.
Okay, let's just go at it right now from the top because we need to, plot some time on this. I think that the idea that the 12-team playoff will allow us to settle it on the field is actually a fallacy. Like, I think that there's this idea that because there are more teams getting in, that we're going to be more satisfied with the results at the end of the year. And that might be true to a certain extent. But when you think about how hard it was to get into the 4-team playoff, the excellence that it demanded to get into that 4-team situation, there are a hell of a lot more teams, especially this season, that fall into Tier B than the 5 or 6 extra that we're going to get. And I think there are going to be a lot of teams that have a real claim to get in at the end of the year that don't. And I'm not saying that I will feel the same empathy towards those teams that I would like Florida State a year ago. But like there are a lot of scenarios. We are very far along into the season where the teams at the end of the year who are left out are going to have a real gripe. And people in the committee room are going to have to make the decisions of who goes and who doesn't. And there are going to be decisions made by people that are replacing games. And I think that we are going to find that out in a really big way this year. I was on Kings of the North with Doug and Bill last night, and it really hit me. Doug did a good job of driving it home, but it's true.
Because they're worried Southern teams are going to get in over Northern teams?
No.
Oh.
No. I think that we both did, or all 3 of us did a bracket.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there was a collection of 5 to 7 teams that were out in at least one of our brackets with very similar results. Because if you look at what's left in the season, there's not, it's college football, upsets will certainly happen, but there's
have you watched college football in November before?
Yeah, no, I know. And it's like, it's possible that, everybody loses and there's no problem. But if you look at the way that this season is shaping out, the remaining schedules of the good teams that are there, like I'm envisioning situations like what happens if we have a 11-1 Indiana versus a 10-2 Alabama at the end of the year.
You won't. They'll both get in.
Okay, so we're going to, you can keep doing that. Okay, so we'll keep both getting into everybody, and then we're going to get there, and it's
no. In that
not
particular case, they're going to both get in. I'm just
and then
telling
what happens with Tennessee in that scenario?
Is Tennessee 10-2?
Texas A&M. There's a lot of teams that are going to be 10-2 this year, Andy. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
No, there's not. Again, have you watched November football before?
Okay.
So, all right, let me explain to you what's happened to you. You were so hilariously wrong about the 12-team playoff and your complaints about it that you're trying to grasp at anything to say that it won't be better than what it was. It's so much better. Knock. And here's the thing: team doesn't get in, like at large number 12 doesn't get in because somebody from who's a conference champ got in at 12. I don't care. Their fans will care. I don't care. They should have won more games.
Yeah, I don't want to go down a path of better or worse because I think that the games that we're going to get,
there's no argument.
Okay, that's great. I'm talking about what could happen. I'm not. This isn't what that's about. I don't give a shit about that anymore. It's
okay,
over.
well, all right. Well, let me help you with this one too. All the stuff you're talking about, the complaints, the angst, feature not bug. Ari, we run a college football talk show. Do you know what that gives us?
I don't know that I'm even
something
saying
to
it's
talk
a bug. I feel like
about.
you're not hearing what I'm saying. I'm saying that the notion that it will be settled on the field in this playoff.
It will be. Because you, person who said teams 5 through 12 don't even deserve to be there.
Yeah.
If they don't even deserve to be there, it doesn't matter. Because the teams that deserve to be there will be in it. And if they win, they win. If they don't, well, they didn't. Maybe they weren't that good anyway.
That's exactly how I feel. But if you have 5 to 6 teams,
but if they beat those teams, if the 5 through 12 beat the 1 through 4, oh well.
I'm maybe saying at the end of the year, there's a high likelihood that Texas will be a 1-loss team, that Georgia will be a 1-loss team, that Tennessee will be a 2-loss team, that Alabama will be a 2-loss team, that Indiana will be a 1-loss team, that Ohio State will be a 1-loss team, that Penn State will be a 1-loss team, that Oregon will be undefeated. There's going to be a lot of teams.
How many teams did you just name? Name them. Like, how many teams did you just name?
I think like 7 or 8.
Count them up.
Yeah.
Count them up.
And I know there's 12. We didn't get to the ACC and we did not get to the Big 12 yet. I was just afraid that you were going to interrupt me when I was talking. Like, I'm talking to you about the fact that there's going to be 15 teams potentially with 2 losses at the end of the year, and there are going to be 3 or 4 teams that people in a boardroom are going to decide who gets in.
Okay.
And when they do that, there are going to be 3 teams that feel like that they weren't settled on the field. Because I think that we were anticipating.
Then they should have won more games.
I know, but we're still going to be subjectively choosing between who goes in, who doesn't in a boardroom. And this is what's supposed to be avoided in this system.
Well, Ari, so should we expand it to 16? That sounds like what you want.
I'm sure that's what we're going to do. And then when we get there, there's going to be even more teams that are 9-3. The problem, so what you just said makes my point. The further that you expand it, you don't make it cleaner, you make it messier, because the more you expand it, the more teams in the secondary tier you introduce, because there's probably going to be 9-3 teams. So if you go to 16 or 18, you're going to have to choose between even more teams. And the thing
I heard all these stupid arguments when Bill Hancock was getting paid to make them, and then he got paid to make different arguments because the commissioners wanted a bigger playoff. It's the cleaner.
I don't want to argue about whether it's better or worse. That's not the point I'm trying to.
Well, because it's better. There is no argument.
I accept that it's better. Can we focus on what I'm trying to tell you now?
Yeah, I'm telling you that doesn't matter. What you're worried about is the whole point of the thing. I'm
telling you that the number one selling point of the 12-team playoff era is that it promotes better games, and that when it promotes those games, and by the way, Clemson loses to Miami in the ACC championship, playing that extra game that everybody's promoting is going to cost them a chip to the playoff. By the way, when they played that Georgia game,
win the game. Win the games.
Okay, but when you say before the year that the 12-team playoff era is going to promote scheduling better games because they don't matter as much, you're wrong. That's not true. Clemson will prove it this year. Playing Georgia cost them a trip to the playoff.
What if Georgia loses to Tennessee?
Then this is going to get even worse.
Georgia's win against Clemson is going to get them in.
Because what's going to happen at the end of the year if Texas A&M is a 2-loss team, Alabama's a 2-loss team, Tennessee's a 2-loss team.
Notre Dame's a 1-loss team.
And Notre Dame's a one-loss team. You have 2 undefeated teams playing in the Big 12 championship game. You have 2 unbeaten teams in the ACC playing. You have SMU there with 1 loss. There's going to be a lot of problems here.
You again, you've.
I know you can just say.
November works.
I know you can just say that it's November and that everything's going to fall apart, and you're probably going to be right. I'm just telling you right now. If you look at the schedules, we are pretty far along in the season. And there aren't a lot of it's like, go ahead and say that Miami's going to lose to Duke, like some people are saying. They're 21 and a half point favorites.
That. I think Miami's going to be 12
saying,
but I
go
do
look
think
at the remaining schedules of the teams. There's not a lot of opportunity for the whole thing to just completely fall apart, is what I'm saying. Like at the end of the year, I think we're going to have 5 teams that have a legitimate chance to get in or case to get in that won't. And that makes
Rocky
it worse.
Top Tom doesn't even understand his own argument. He's in the chat arguing that there should be no playoff. He says the entire playoff system came from people crying that everyone should get a trophy. No, the bowl system is everyone crying that everyone should get a trophy. In the bowl system, 30 teams leave with a trophy. Rocky Top Tom, you need to understand your own arguments before you try to make them.
You know, and one thing that we have to do, and I know this got kind of heated, but we both need to make a bracket and then we need to go through it. Because going through the exercise last night with Bill and Doug, opened my eyes of holy crap, that you can make 10 different brackets that all make sense. And if they all, and then if the season plays out similarly, you still get to different results. This
was the entire point. That's why they did it.
All I am saying is this is dirtier. It's not cleaner. And people thought it was going to be cleaner. It's going to be dirtier.
What people? Dumb people?
The settle it on the field people, one of which is you.
The best teams will settle it on the field.
Okay, so how is that different from last year?
You could have had more teams settling it on the field. I don't care. I want more good games. There's a reason every other sports league in the world has a tournament of a similar size to decide a champion.
Yeah, because this year is actually kind of strange, the results in college football. There are more teams that are in the I thought coming into the year that a 9-3 team could get in. And that's not going to happen now.
There's only one 9-3 team that can get in, and they're not running the table.
Yeah, well, I beg to differ. I think Florida's going.
They live in the town where I live, but they'd have to run the table, and they're not doing that.
But I thought we would be having a hard time finding teams, but there are a lot of really good, BYU's emergence, Iowa State's emergence.
Good thing.
Yeah.
All good things.
The only time in the 4-team era that we had a debate about whether they got it right and we're sick to our stomachs about it was last year when Florida State had that weird injury with Jordan Travis.
Right.
That was the only time in the 4-team field that it felt unjust. The 12-team playoff era is going to feature a lot more at the end of the year.
And again,
decisions that are going to feel unjust. That's all I'm saying.
And I'm not going to feel sorry for the team that gets left out because they could have won another game.
Because that's and I found this out about myself last night. Because when I went on the show, I said the first thing I said was exactly what you just said. I said, I will not feel bad for 13, 14, and 15. Because if you're not good enough to be 5, then who gives a shit, right? I'm with you on that. Are we 1,000% sure, Andy? 1,000% sure that if there are 4 teams in the SEC that are 10-2 at the end of the year, and Clemson is a 2-loss team that lost in the ACC, or even if Clemson's a undefeated ACC champ with the only loss coming to Georgia, and Miami only has 1 loss, that Indiana is 1,000% in at 11-1. Are we sure about that? Are you sure?
I'm sure.
And it's because I don't think that that's guaranteed at all. I think that it is possible that Alabama would get chosen over them if it comes down to one last spot because they will have a win over Georgia. You know how this goes. Who you beat is more important than what your record is. So,
then Indiana should beat Ohio State.
And then if Indiana,
somebody else.
Well, that's the thing, though. It's Indiana would, in this scenario, would have done more with their schedule blowing. Literally, they haven't won a game by less than 14 this year. If they go on the road
also is
to
something
Ohio
the committee
State,
will take into account.
I understand. I'm not saying they can't get in. I am pushing back.
You're inventing a scenario that's almost impossible. All right, let's make a bet. If Indiana goes 11-1 and doesn't get in, what do I have to do? What
Let's
embarrassing thing? Do I have to shave my head? What do I have to do?
Bet if there are more teams that I'm talking about. I'll make that bet with you.
Okay, because I'm telling you right now, an 11-1 Indiana will get in. Now, I think we're actually still making big assumptions on that there's going to be an 11-1 Indiana. And you know me, I'm Mr. Hoosier at this point. Like, that is not a given. And we fall into this trap every year, usually around this time of year, where we say everything's going to be chalk from here on out. It is not. What always like back in the day when the SEC would have the weekend of cupcakes, we'd be like, this weekend's going to suck. There's going to be nothing that happens this weekend that's interesting. And some like mind-blowing upset would happen. There will be those.
I know
there will be all of those.
Yeah, I understand. Like, I understand the concept of upsets in like November. Like, I get it. All I'm saying is that we are at a point in the year that's further along than I anticipated, with more teams that are alive than I anticipated that have very easy schedules down the stretch. Like, very easy schedules. Like, if you look at the teams that are still alive, and we need to do this. I need to sit down and do this exercise where I figure out how many teams are still alive and look at their schedules. There's a lot of 22. We've got a 22-point spreads all over the place. Like, we're not talking about games that are 4 or 5. Like, these are like, we're going to, at a certain point, you are going to have to start counting on Duke to beat Miami. Games like that to happen for this to get a little bit cleaner. And the only point I was trying to make, and I really did not want to get into a debate about whether it's better or worse. I don't think that's relevant. The point I'm making is this system is going to produce more shafting than the last one.
At a lower level. Last year, an undefeated team that won a power conference got left out. That is not happening this year. That is never happening again.
Right. So if you don't care about the lower level, that's okay. I didn't think I did.
They don't. We know that.
I didn't think that I did. Like, coming into the year, like, I was like, oh yeah, if you're 13, screw off.
But this has made you care more about the Mountain West race than the American race.
It's
like,
made me
also
care.
Was part of the point.
I found myself, and it's funny coming from me, more attached to Indiana than I thought I would be. And if Indiana doesn't get in because they lose a close game to Ohio State, and then they send a 2-loss Alabama team or a 2-loss team from the SEC, because if Alabama goes, that means Tennessee has to go, right? You can't do one without the other,
right?
Unless it's Tennessee only. And then Indiana gets screwed because they didn't beat Georgia at the end of the year. That's going to freaking suck. And that scenario didn't exist last year. And Indiana might not have this opportunity again for a while.
Florida State got screwed last year, so they could put Alabama in. So
yeah. I'm saying though, like, the thing that kind of annoys me is that the 12-team thing was about inclusion for a lot of people.
All right, I got it. If 11-1 Indiana gets left out of the playoff, your USC bet loss is forgiven.
Okay. I mean, don't make me root against it now. I mean, like the thing that bothers me, Andy, is you can't spend all year. And I'm not saying you. I just mean,
scenario that's not going to happen.
Okay.
To make as the tent pole of your argument, that's not going to happen. Like, now, is there a chance that a 10-2 Alabama gets in over some other team that you think is deserving? That's also a 2-loss team. Yeah,
I think it might happen to 3 teams this year at once.
I guess we'll find out.
And if they choose the helmet over the resume, or if they choose the helmet over a team that I deem deserving, I think that's bullshit still.
That's fine. And come on the show and argue about it.
We will. So I don't know.
Saucy take number 2.
I don't know. Is that not a saucy? Like, you have to rate the take. Like, I don't even know.
It's not a saucy take at all, because it's wrong. It's just wrong.
I don't even know.
So I guess it's kind of saucy because, like,
I don't even know
it's right saucy in its wrongness.
What is there to be wrong about? That all teams are going to get screwed is wrong.
I mean, if you think so, you're the one who said you're not as sympathetic toward that team that is number.
But I did find out about myself. I did find out about myself that I might actually be more sympathetic to those teams than I thought.
Look at your heart has grown like 3 sizes, Ari.
Yeah, I don't know if it's northern poisoning, but like, I do feel like there are teams that And like, I'll feel really bad for Clemson if they lose to Miami in the ACC championship game and then lose because they scheduled a big game. Like, that's going to suck. So,
Well,
like,
that is a result the committee should try to avoid, because you want people to schedule good games. Like, you want to reward those. Stephen Wilson in the chat says it's medium spicy. So I'll go with medium spicy. What else?
I actually thought you were going to be like, it's not spicy because, yeah, we know that, but I don't care. Like, that's what I thought you were going to say.
Well, I don't really care. But I do think it's like,
I don't even know what you think I'm wrong about.
I think it's funny that you cannot handle being so wrong about this that you got to keep shoveling dirt on it.
That's so. I swear to you, that's not my. I'm not even.
Rocky Top Tom's in the chat still arguing about bowl games like anybody cares.
Okay. The second take I had was me agreeing with Dabo Sweeney. Dabo Sweeney and I don't agree very often. I think the man has his heart in the right place, and I think he says a lot of stupid stuff that he doesn't think through in press conferences. But I saw on 3 yesterday that he thinks that we should do away with the red shirt and all the eligibility rules, the medical stuff, and just give everybody 5 years. Do what you want during 5 years. It would stop opt-outs. No matter what happens, you get 5 years and just make the eligibility stuff clean. And I think that is the correct take.
Ari, you are correct, and Dabo's correct.
Yeah. And I don't know if that's
this is something that the coaches have actually wanted this for like 20 years. They've been arguing this for 20 years, and there's been resistance to it. But the 4-game redshirt rule was put in place in a different era with different transfer rules, pre-NIL, and it was made so that teams could have more depth at the end of the season. And it was well-intentioned. But now, because of the change in the transfer rules, it has become a weapon that's used by players' agents, that's used by coaches themselves, that like it's not helping anybody. Like you had the Colin Lacey situation at Louisville where he's shutting it down and he's going to redshirt. You had the Matthew Sluka situation at UNLV earlier in the season. You had Bear Alexander, you had Jaheim Otis at Alabama. We know the names. But this is something coaches have said, just give them 5 to play 5, because right now they have 4 to play. They have 5 to play 4. Give them 5 to play 5. Some of the coaches say, if there is a catastrophic injury, then you can petition and try to get the waiver. Some say no waiver. But I think 5 to play 5 is an inherently fair way to do it.
And if you get injured 3 years, that stinks, but that's just the way it turns out for you. Like, it's the same way that people have career-ending injuries and stuff. Like,
right.
5 years is a really long time to figure out how to play football. And like, if you can't, like, I think we should be done with the 29-year-old who's in his 8th year thing. I think we should be done with how many games did a person play this year, and should they get thrown out, or should you sit out and weaponize it? Like, all this stuff that is just like that we talk about, that we ramble about. Like, it's important because the rule still exists.
Yeah.
But like, I just don't want to talk about it anymore. It's just like, go do what you got to do.
Think,
you get 5 years, and then when the 5 years is up, no matter how it played out for you, you're done. And that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the unintentional consequences where you change one thing for one reason and then another rule change for a different reason, but it affects it. Like, yeah, this is, as Scott in the chat says, this isn't a take, it's common sense. It's interesting. I'm reading the chat. And this is a common sentiment, like what Scott's saying, because it is common sense. I think a few years ago, people would be like, no, you can't do that. College is 4 years. Like, that's not how it works. But I also think people are not always just finishing college in 4 years and non-athletes.
Well,
like
most student athletes are actually getting their degrees in 3 now, right? Like, don't a lot of,
because they stay for
there in the
school.
summer, they take extra classes while they're there. So like, it's not, I think most of them go in 3. So the 4-year traditional, route, I don't know really is relevant. I think that also too, offering, if you're a big proponent of giving kids educational opportunities, that like giving them 5 years might get more people graduate degrees. So that would be great.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
I think that's a good thing.
The speed at which these guys are getting the bachelor's degree, you're probably getting a master's degree in that amount of time. So yeah, I'm with you. I'm with Dabo. This is definitely common sense. And hey, how about that? You, me, and Dabo all agree on something.
But I actually, that's weird. I also think too that like, if the opt-out thing is going to be a problem, like the Sluka thing is going to be a problem, where you can play 4
It would
games,
eliminate that.
leave your team. It would eliminate that completely, because I think it would be a problem ongoing if they continue to until we get to the collective bargaining. That's
just like I said with
sucks.
the Jaheim Otis thing. Like, why? Like, this doesn't have to happen. This doesn't need to be happening. And
then it also cuts out like the shady agent angle of this. It's like you've already started your time. You've got nothing to gain by not playing.
It most of the time. Yeah.
You have nothing to gain by not playing. Like Jaheim Otis could finish the season and see how things go. Maybe somebody gets injured. Maybe he plays really well in practice and his entire experience changes. I think it also would encourage people to stick through it during hard times. Like, because you don't have, like, anytime you can limit like the things you gain from quitting, I think is a good thing. Especially
and the thing is, you can still transfer at the end of the year, but play out the season. You never know what'll happen. Like, let's say you're not happy with your spot on the depth chart. Well, what if something happens to the guy ahead of you and the last 4 games you get in there and ball out? Like, your whole perspective on things is going to change. So no, I'm with you. Ari, what is take number 3?
The thing I wanted to ask you, though, Andy, because I'm not sure, because you're like the legal expert here. You went to law school, I think.
No.
Like, we're going to get to a point, too, where it's like the NCAA might get sued for limiting eligibility. So if they put a finite time on it, right? Like, you're saying you can't be an NIL. You can't have NIL income because you're only limiting how much time somebody can be a part of something that makes them marketable,
maybe.
Which gets kind of murky. So I don't know if that's a doable thing, but I don't know that that's different because they could still sue over the 4 years. So, like, it's the same thing. But, like, I do wonder how that's going to play out. Okay, and lastly, this will be the first time since 2017 there was no SEC player as a Heisman finalist.
When I saw, because producer River sends me kind of a thumbnail preview of what you're going to say, so we can write the headline and the show description and stuff. I saw this and I was pretty sure this was what you're going to say. And at first I was like, oh God. And then I'm like, you know what? I was the Alonzo Mourning gif. I was like, yeah, I think you might be right. Because I'm trying to think of who it would be. Because we thought for a while it might be Jalen Milroe. And I guess he could have just a phenomenal end of the season. But, like, there's not a quarterback in the SEC that you look at and you say, that guy is absolutely dominant. I don't think Carson Beck at Georgia has been that guy. Garrett Nussmeier has been good.
Could have LSU, been had they won Saturday with a good game, but I think that changed on Saturday night.
Yeah. And then there's not a running back, really a receiver. There's not somebody doing something. Like, the thing about the Heisman race this year to me is I feel like Travis Hunter and Ashton Genty both are doing something that is so unusual that we just can't. It's really hard to imagine anybody else because they're doing something so crazy and unusual. Now, there may be a quarterback like Dylan Gabriel, I think, down the stretch. Like, if he just is dominant down the stretch, there's a chance. But it is very hard to imagine anybody else just because those two have been so spectacular.
Well, there's 4 players that are in the top 4 of the odds. Like, everybody's top 4 in the Heisman right now is the same, right? It's Ashton Genty, Travis Hunter, Dylan Gabriel, and Cam Ward. Those are the 4. Yeah. And then after Cam Ward, the odds go to like 30-1, like for everyone else. So I think that, like, if Alabama wins the rest of their games, because, like, we don't talk about Alabama in the playoff anymore. I think if Alabama's 10-2, they're probably going to get in.
I think they're probably in. I think the assumption is they won't be. But if you look at the schedule, if they beat LSU, then they probably will win out. Though I'm not assuming anything about the Iron Bowl.
Yeah, I guess we can't assume anything about the Iron Bowl.
Steven has a good point. And I'm this is the one person I think has a chance. He says it sucks that while Genty is sucking all the running back love, deservingly so, Dylan Sampson is going to have one of, if not the best rushing seasons in SEC history. Could you see Dylan Sampson in New York and not winning?
Mm-mm.
You don't even think he'd be a finalist?
Have you heard Dylan Sampson's name in any Heisman discussion once?
That's true.
It's not that I don't think he's deserving.
Against Georgia, that would probably be the only way that he jumps into the discussion.
I think that it's not out of the question because there is a path to the fame, right? Like, I don't know if the casual fan knows who Dylan Sampson is, which is interesting because he's having a tremendous year. And I think that the real reason why that's the case is that I don't know if we have enough bandwidth as a college football community to have this much love and affection towards more than one running back. Like Ashton Genty is like going to be a really good pro too. Like in
So
watching
our
him,
friends at Prize Picks, by the way, Ari, the Ashton Genty square this week against San Diego State, they put the Michael Myers mask on him.
They did.
Yeah. It's a good look.
What's the number?
It's very cool considering
the number
he
is probably
like Michael Myers before every play.
That is so funny because it's like so like I don't even know how you're ready to run the ball and then like run people over. But like I don't know if you like the running back position is so hard inherently to win the Heisman from anyway. I don't know if you could talk yourself into two, and it might not be fair, but like. We have been in love with Dylan Sampson since before the season like started going crazy, right? That's why I went to Knoxville to dance with the guy. Like I think he's very deserving, but I am actually kicking myself because the Travis Hunter Heisman odds before the year were so long. It was such a long shot, and I think part of the reason why is because we anticipated that Colorado wouldn't be very good. But in a world where there's no star quarterback that was like Caleb Williams or Drake May or like there was no like Carson Beck was who he was, but there's no quarterback
coming into the season. There was not the quarterback who just sort of stood out above everybody else. Yeah,
the runway for him to win the award was a lot shorter than the odds were. Like when you actually like look at how this season's playing out, that would have been and Big Cat said he had a 40-1 ticket, and it's like that was a really good bet.
Yeah, because there's a chance he may cash that.
I think he's going to win it. I think that's who's going to win this year.
Well, we were talking about Dylan Sampson. We're going to talk a little more about Tennessee in a second because our friend Nick Roush is coming back on because he said something a couple weeks ago about an $8 million volleyball player. And now Nick, he's from Kentucky Sports Radio. His Wildcats are headed to Knoxville to play Tennessee. We're going to see how he feels about Nico Iamaleava and the Vols now. But before that, I want to tell you about Wunderfan, first of its kind college football stadium rewards app where fans earn real rewards simply by cheering for their favorite team. All you need to do is head to the App Store, download the app, check in once you're at the game or the tailgate, and let your earnings grow. It's that easy. During the game, when you're attending, you'll earn in the background once you press start. Once you have enough earnings, you can redeem for gift cards to your favorite brands like Fanatics, Dick's, Lululemon, Home Depot, and many more. Even ticket giveaways and fun contests that you can use your points to enter. So new rewards are added weekly. Right now, users will get 50 free Wonder your currency within the app just for signing up. That'll score you a $10 off Fanatics code plus a chance to win tickets to the national championship. So just head to the App Store and search Wunderfan. That's Wunderfan and start being paid for your fan loyalty. Wunderfan, where it pays to be a fan. We know who Nick Roush is a fan of. Well, let's see what he said a couple weeks ago. Well, we thought we had that video. Oh, here it comes. It's coming.
This is fun. It's not always fun if you're for your specific team, but it is fun to point and laugh from afar. So Tennessee fans, I know you're out there. I know you want me to get triggered, but hey, I don't have an $8 million volleyball player who can't throw a go ball. So it's okay. It's okay, guys. Hypo system's fine. You're going to be fine. Maybe you'll find a quarterback who can hit some open receivers. It couldn't against Florida. You'll probably figure it out against Kentucky, but it's okay. As long as you're not winning national titles, doesn't look like you're going to be doing it with that guy. So fine by me. Have fun with that guy.
Hi, Nick. How are you feeling?
Not great. I'm not backing off my take though. Not for a second. Because here's the thing: you all were talking about how great Dylan Sampson is. Everybody, their eyes are on Nico. They want to see the $8 million man be an all-star. Do you know who has more 30-yard completions than Nico this year?
DJ Lagway against Kentucky alone.
Almost. He had 5 there, but he's played. He's only started 2 games. He's got a dozen. Taylon Green has more. I mean, Brock Vandegrift is probably getting benched. I don't know what's going there. Nico's only got 2 more 30-yard passes than that. His completion percentage is just a tick above Lenora Sellers. Tennessee is good in spite of Nico. And in our brains, we have Josh Heupel. We have him connected, intertwined with this amazing high-flying passing offense where the Vols are dropping bombs down the field to Cedric Tillman and co. And that's just not what their offense is. He's good for 1 or 2 a game, and that's fine. That's what they need. But they're winning with defense and running the football. We all know that. Their defense is awesome. It's going to eat up Kentucky on Saturday. It's just I'm not backing off this take, but unfortunately, I'm probably going to have to because I am a self-loathing Kentucky fan who has seen this tape time and time again, and I know that Nico's going to look like Peyton frickin' Manning Saturday night when it's dark mode. They are going to roll Kentucky, and he's going to be playing the band after like 4 touchdowns, and I'm going to be eating all kinds of crow. And it's life as a Kentucky fan. We show up to Neon Stadium and we get our teeth kicked in time and time again. And I hate it. I absolutely hate it.
You know what my favorite thing to do was while that rant was happening? I was just locked in on River. Our producer's a Tennessee fan, and I'm just like staring at his face as you talk, and it's incredible. It's great content. Like, do you think that it's just like I get it. I get why you're saying that. And honestly speaking, like he has not been good enough. Like that, like, I don't know that anybody's disputing that, right, Andy? Like, are you with me on that?
No, like the second half of the Alabama game is the first time I would say that's what you were hoping for. That's what you wanted to see. And so if there's more of that, great, but got to see more of that.
The investment, though, isn't an $8 million volleyball player who can't hit a go route in his first 5 games as a starter. Like, it's the $8 million that he's going to get to be a star eventually. Like, are you out on the notion that he's going to be great in year 2 or 3?
No. And that's me. That's also me being a terrified Kentucky fan because I've had to sit in those stands and hear Rocky Top over and over until it turns me into an absolute raving lunatic. And I'm fearful of it. The issue though is like when he made that throw against Alabama, right? That I forget who it was to, but that was
down the right sideline. Yeah.
And you're like, oh, that's where it is. So I think the consistency can be there eventually. But the problem that I think you have to say as a Tennessee fan is this defense isn't going to be as good next year when Nico really gets going. I don't think Dylan Sampson's going to be rocking and rolling like he is right now. Like the window and the schedule, everything's there. So maybe in their wildest dreams, Kentucky is the medicine. The Nick Roush smack talk is the medicine that gets them right, that turns Nico on. Because, like, let's be real. The hitting on your stride in October is no longer necessary in this current college football ecosystem when you got to win 3 games to get to a title, right? So if he gets rolling in November and we kind of tee this thing up for him, the schedule's there for them to make the playoff and potentially go on a run. But I'm still just I'm fading Nico. I'm fading him. I'm sticking to my guns for now until I have to go into dark mode. And they call it dark mode. For Kentucky fans, it's a blackout because that's the only way you can get through.
But what are you going to do? Like, are you going to, when people come after you, because it's going to happen, people are going to come after you.
I'll take it.
Are you going to, you got to, well, trust me, I've been on the wrong side of a few avalanches myself. I get it. But, you're a very bubbly personality. I think if anybody can handle it, it's going to be you, right? Like, you're going to come out swinging back.
It's this isn't new to me, guys. And I was trying to think of a way to analogize what it's like to be a Kentucky fan and deal with Tennessee fans regularly. Because in my life, I've seen 3 wins. One of them was a wide receiver playing quarterback. Another one, the stands were empty and Jarrett Garantano just kept throwing pick sixes. So I have felt pain every time I watch this Kentucky team play Tennessee. It doesn't matter. It's just the logo. And I didn't know if there was a good way to analogize, but it goes back to a story where if you played high school football, you're probably pretty well aware that your sophomore year, it's the worst year. You're getting beat up. As a freshman, you're with the freshman team. It's not so bad, but you get to your sophomore year and you're just kind of a punching bag. The 2 best players on our team, I played tight end and defensive end. Those were the 2 best players. I had to get my ass kicked by them every single day. But every once in a while, you think you get to feeling a little froggy. That's how I feel like Kentucky fans do with Tennessee. You get to feeling froggy, and one day you're just doing a basic field goal block drill, and you call the senior that's all conference a ginger, and then he picks you up, and then he slams you in a puddle of mud when you're only wearing a helmet.
Of course you did that.
Contact.
Of course you would do that.
It's what I do. It's not something I just learned instantly.
This would be like when I was on the scout team calling, future first round pick Reggie McGrew a name. Like, I would never call him a name because the man was like a human cannonball. And I was like the guy who gets the cannonball in his stomach. So
when I was playing high school football, I was playing defensive tackle, and I would line up against the center, and nobody on my team played college football, but I would say under my breath, "Don't hurt me."
I love
that was a funny guy.
So Scott in the chat, this is funny. This would never happen because Tennessee's a serious program, unlike USC. Mm-hmm. But if there was an option to buy your way to run through the T on the field with Tennessee, would you do it in Kentucky gear? Because you probably wouldn't make it out of there alive, but would you do it just for the clicks?
Oh yeah. There's no doubt about it. And I actually had to think about the scenario, and I didn't think about it for long because it's not going to happen. Kentucky has been a shell of themselves since that Ole Miss win, which feels like an eternity ago. But with this defense running the ball style, there's what if there's a chance that Kentucky, in a shock of all shocks, if they beat Tennessee, I mean, I could not contain my obnoxiousness. There's no way around it. The chances of physical violence, me drawing that to myself, it was a pretty good chance, right? I would, and you know what? It blame the victim. You can blame. You're not supposed to victim blame. You could blame the victim in this case because I would definitely
because he can't shut up.
Yes, I would have that punchable face, but it's probably not going to happen. Even if Kentucky did come out and play its A game like it did against Ole Miss, it's probably not going to happen. And I think a lot of it is just that logo. And that's the question that I had for you guys. You don't see this as much in professional sports. Maybe the divisional games are just closer because they know each other well. But what is it about college sports where some teams just have the other's number? Even in Kentucky's 2018 season, that was one of Tennessee's worst years, one of Kentucky's best. They win that, they're probably going to the Sugar Bowl, and they just lay an egg. You see that with A&M and Arkansas, where A&M's just kind of got their number. What do you think it is that we're just some teams just have the other one's number?
We should actually go look that up. Which weird, Purdue had it with Ohio State for a while there, where they played a bunch of weird games with Purdue, and everybody in Columbus is always just oh God, we got to go to West Lafayette this year. What is it? That is a good thought. And I wonder what the 10 examples of that would be.
Well, Tennessee has it. It's when they go to Gainesville. How many times in the past 20 years has Tennessee gone to Gainesville as the better team and lost? It doesn't make sense. It just keeps happening, though.
I wish I could explain it. For Kentucky football fans had to suffer through that with Florida and Tennessee for the longest time. They got over that Florida hump. But if you were to, up until recently, that would have been the biggest criticism of Mark Stoops from Average Joe fan was you've been dominating Louisville, you've beaten the Florida streak, but you don't beat Tennessee enough. And there's a lot of people. I know I'm in Louisville, so I deal with more Louisville fans. But for a lot of the state, Eastern Kentucky, they got the Knoxville TV stations. They had to grow up watching Peyton Manning and T. Martin and Phil Fulmer just dominate the sport. So they have to deal with the Vols a lot. And there's not much you can say. You just got to kind of hear Rocky Top over and over and over and over again.
Hey, it's all right. Nothing wrong with getting your corn from a jar. Nick Roush, have fun. Go to Scramble Jake's when you get to Knoxville. Get a big cinnamon roll. It'll make you feel better about what's about to happen.
And hit the casino in Cherokee on the way back.
That's the only cinnamon rolls and gambling,
Yeah. And I think there's a buffet there if you want to eat your feelings. I've done that a few times in my life. So, yeah. Thanks, buddy, for being here.
Thanks, fellas.
Thank you, Nick. All right. So, in a little bit, we're going to have Jim Nagy, our friend, the executive director of the Senior Bowl. He's going to tell us about which quarterbacks have increased their draft stock this year. He's going to tell us what the scouts think of Ashton Genty. He's going to tell us what position Travis Hunter should play in the NFL. But before we do that, we got to talk about Panini America. This show is brought to you by Panini America, makers of the most collectible sports cards on the planet. The Luminance Football Card Series features NIL autograph cards from players including Arch Manning, Quinn Ewers, Cam Ward, Jalen Milroe, Dylan Raiola, DJ Lagway, and Luther Burden. And to start collecting, visit PaniniAmerica.net. I actually have a pack of Luminance right here. We ripped a pack yesterday. We got a Joe Milton autograph card that producer River's going to get. But let's see what we get. And you know, like we're going to establish this is how the game is played. You know, we're going to look at these guys. We're going to see, you know, who each player is. We'll name where they went to college because that's the game I always play. And who knows, we may get something special here. Ari,
you got accused of getting a juiced pack yesterday.
I don't think so. I just think the gods smiled on us and knew producer River was dying to get a Joe Milton autograph. So
okay,
got Nico Collins, Michigan. Tyler Lockett. I loved when Tyler Lockett played at Kansas State because you knew that's who they were going to throw to every time, and he'd still catch 11 passes for 127 yards.
Okay.
Najee Harris, Alabama.
Hey, Andy, when you told me we were going to play the game of where do the players go to college, I knew they were all going to be NFL stars, and for the base cards anyway. And I was like, this is going to be easy, but we might get to a few that are tough here. Let's go.
We might. Jalen Hurts, Alabama and Oklahoma.
Who can claim?
Oh boy, this is a tough one right here. So this is a limited numbered card. Anthony Richardson. He of course went to Florida. He of course just got benched for tapping out on a 3rd and goal play. He got ripped by his own center in a press conference.
You know what they call that in the card industry? That's a hold right there. You know, sleeve the thing up, put it in a drawer, and hope for a turnaround.
Ari, we got an autograph from a guy who's in college, a player I really like. You ready? Oronde Gadsden from Syracuse.
There you go.
Syracuse tight end Oronde Gadsden the second. So obviously dad was a great player for the Miami Dolphins back in the day. But this guy is a fun player to watch. Have enjoyed seeing him at Syracuse the past few years. Look, this is awesome.
Yeah.
Man.
I mean, the prospecting element of this is just so fun. Like being able to, get cards from players who are still in college and then following the rest of their career, seeing how they do in the NFL draft. I like how they put NIL on the card because of the new era that we're in. And that is just the joy. Do you have any numbered cards in that pack still?
So the Anthony Richardson was a number card. And we've also got this numbered out of 150. Jeremiah Trotter Jr., he's a rookie this year with the Eagles. Of course, he played at Clemson. And I also love that they're in their college uniforms. Like here we got Jonathan Brooks in his Texas uniform right here. Olu Fashanu in his Penn State uniform. And here we go. Marvin Harrison Jr. in his Ohio State uniform. So,
and that's the best part about this part of the year for Panini. Like before the players take a bunch of pictures in their pro uniforms and stuff, they have to release the cards with the NIL and the college uniforms. And if you're a college collector, there's a lot of really cool products that Panini puts out that aren't Luminance too, that like have bowl game patches and autographs of like the bowl games they played in. And it's just really, really awesome. I've got some cards of some players of bowl games I covered actually that have the patch of like the crest on their the bowl patch that they put on their jersey is on the card. They cut it out of the jersey and put it on the card. It's really sweet.
Christopher Jordan in the chat said he ordered his Auburn team set yesterday, and Raymond said you can do that. And Christopher said, yeah, you go to Panini to the website PaniniAmerica.net and you search Panini 2024 and get the team of your choice. So I just think it's very cool because this is something that pre-NIL era you just couldn't do. And
yeah, like my desk, I've got cards on my desk at all times. This is a big deal for me. I love the hobby, and I'm so happy that you get to feel the joy of it a little bit too. Here, you're going to hit one monster, and that's it.
Remember, I did this as a kid. I collected baseball cards, basketball cards, football cards as a kid, and so I do remember the thrill. Like when you get a pack of Donruss and you maybe find a rated rookie. Find that Greg Jeffries rated rookie. It was electrifying.
If you open up a pack and like just pop off a $30,000 card, there's no feeling like it. I've done it a few times in my life, and it's incredible.
Well, I've never done that, so I'm ready. I'm ready.
We've got a lot of packs to open. We've got a lot of packs to open.
Well, that is very exciting. So before we get to Jim Nagy, though, I want to talk about a player who's going home this weekend. Ari, Will Howard headed home to Pennsylvania. Started his career at Kansas State. Now at Ohio State. Coming to Penn State as Ohio State's starting quarterback. And I love these stories of dude who's clearly a really good player, grew up the fan of the home state school, didn't get the time of day from them, and wound up being really good. And now he gets his chance. That is Will Howard this weekend. And Ari, I think Will Howard is one of the most important players for Ohio State because, as we've talked about all week, Ohio State has an offensive tackle problem. It may have an entire offensive line problem. I went back and rewatched the Nebraska game yesterday and paid special attention to the offensive line. And, was it because Josh Simmons, the left tackle, went down in the Oregon game? And we're going to talk to Jim Nagy about what that meant and how important he was. But Zim Mikulski, the replacement, he just got battered on social media after that game. And I was like, was it really that bad? And it wasn't great for him. He ended up getting hurt too. So we'll see if he plays this week. But it was the entire line. It wasn't just Zen that had a tough game against Nebraska. The entire line did. And I think Will Howard's going to have to try to make up for some of that, maybe with his legs in this game, in terms of either getting out and keeping plays alive so he can throw the ball down the field to those incredible receivers they have, or just helping the run game with some yardage on the ground.
Yeah. I have an opinion about the Will Howard quote from after the game on Saturday. And I was going to write it. And I was just like, I don't know that I should write this, but I'm going to tell you what it is. My thought is you are 10 minutes removed from nearly losing to Nebraska on your home field. And you go up into the news conference and go, well, I can't wait to go to Penn State. I wanted to play there. They didn't think I was good enough. Well, we'll see next Saturday. Like, I'm just tired of hearing Ohio State players talk. Don't talk. Just go do something. Like last year, when all these players came back, they were like, we're going to right the ship. It's just like all this like promises. Ryan Day on last week, we're going to, play with energy. We're an angry team, tells the people at the skull session before the game, today isn't about words, it's about actions. And it's just like time and time again, they come up short. Go do something. And then after the game, tell us about how they didn't want you. Don't do it before. Just go win the game and do something.
With Will Howard doing that, because I don't think Will Howard is an Ohio State player. Like, I still think of him as a Kansas State player. So
no, I know, but it's just like you hear like Ohio State does a really good job of talking. Like, honestly, they say a lot of what they're going to do, and they haven't really done much. So it would be nice to see them do something first and then gloat about it after, rather than the vice versa. So we'll see. I can't wait. Like, it's an important game for Will Howard, and I think that he's going to have to lift his team up. I think he's a very good player. It's a very big game and an important spot for both teams.
Well, let's talk about Will Howard in terms of Prize Picks. Our friends at Prize Picks, the best daily fantasy game in America. Download that app. Use the code STAPLES. Play $5 and get $50 instantly if you're a new subscriber. This is a really interesting number, I think. His passing yardage number is 224.5. Will he throw for more than that or less than that? I'm not as worried about that one as his 14.5 rushing yards number. So this one's interesting because it seems low, especially for a guy who's pretty athletic. But remember, sacks get backed out of your rushing total.
Makes it tough.
I think it's got to be more than this for them to win. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point because you're baking the sacks into that, right? Like, he doesn't get sacked a lot.
Yes.
Okay. So I see what you're doing there. I think that makes sense. Like, if he has positive rushing yards or gets the 15, then that means that, he didn't get his butt kicked all day. Although he could get sacked 7 times and then break off 160-yard run. But I guess what you're saying makes a ton of sense to me. And
also I watched Chip Kelly's press conference yesterday, And he was answering questions about, because somebody asked, like, can Will Howard help more in the run game? And Chip Kelly's trying to explain how the read option works. Like, Will's just making the read, and the read has been give the ball to the back, which they have not had a great, they didn't have a lot of success against Nebraska just giving the ball to the back. And Chip came out and said, he's like, it's not like with Tebow, we're not running QB power here where the QB is definitely running the ball. Like, it needs to be the read. So I guess it probably will depend on how Penn State plays them as well.
Andy, he's only rushed for more than 14.5 yards 3 times this year.
Yeah.
Sorry, he's only done it once. My bad.
No,
he got to 14 twice.
Yeah. It's gonna be very interesting.
I actually like the less than number there, if I'm being honest with you. But between
I think
sack potential and the fact
how
that
you
he
feel
might not
about
be
the
running.
game.
Yeah. I don't like that number at all. I think that's a little high. So yeah, but it's a very big game for both teams, and Will Howard avoiding pressure, maintaining his eyes downfield, moving the sticks with his legs, all that stuff's going to come into play. And I think that these numbers that we're looking at here, Andy, whether he eclipses them or not, is going to go a long way in telling us the story of who's going to win this thing.
I think you're exactly right. I'm very excited. We're going to talk about Will Howard a little bit and a lot of these other players in the Penn State-Ohio State game with our friend Jim Nagy, the executive director of the Senior Bowl. He is the Scouts scout, and he watches college football from a very different perspective than we do, and it is fascinating. Here's Jim. To be joined by the executive director of the recent Senior Bowl, Jim Nagy. And Jim, I know this is a very busy time of the year for you. You've got these 3-hour calls with NFL teams trying to figure out who they should be picking. But I also know you're in a weird position because of the way the game has changed. You've also got players and their agents calling you saying, hey, what should I do? Should I go in the draft? Should I go in the portal? Should I stay with the team I'm on? Like, what? How has that changed?
Yeah, it's changed a lot. And good to be on with you guys. Good to see Ari. Yeah, it's changed a lot, man. This thing, as we all know, just over probably the last 2.5, 3 years, the college football landscape's just crazy. So yeah, I mean, it used to be agents reaching out to see if their guy was going to get a Senior Bowl invite or where they stood or what we think of them or what the league thinks of them. And there's still a lot of that. But there's also, well, hey, like the school wants to, because I guess all these NIL deals run out in December. So they're trying to get ahead of it right now because this is like poaching season and there's stuff going on shenanigans going on behind the scenes. So it's just like, should this guy come out? Like, what are you hearing? So yeah, it is not to keep going, but yeah, it's definitely changed.
Jim, you have like the key into the underbelly of college football. Like when you think about college football in general, everybody knows that there's like this layer beneath the surface of all this crazy stuff happening, and we only get like 10% of it. And you get a front row seat. That's like pay-per-view stuff right there. I mean, what's it like being you? The most powerful man, maybe. You can make a case you're one of the more powerful men in college football if you're helping people make decisions on whether they should go back. If you hated somebody's team, you could be public enemy number one,
Yeah, no, I would never do that. Yeah, it's like the Connor Stallions, right? That show comes out and we find out about this underbelly of college football with the analyst stuff. But no, it is I mean, it's like you guys. I mean, you have relationships and going back to my time in scouting, I mean, these coaches, I mean, most of the guys that when I was coming up as a young scout, most of these head coaches are coming up as young coaches. So those are kind of my contemporaries. So, I have a direct line to those guys. And again, the players mean a lot to me. I don't like seeing players be steered wrong. So that's really my main motivation is to make sure these kids are doing the right thing. And unfortunately, I don't always connect with them. We truly leave the players alone. Like with the Senior Bowl process, like I'm hands off. Like I don't jump in these guys' DMs and I don't track down their family members like that. To me, that's not our place. Again, it's just respect to the coaches. They're trying to win football games right now. Like we shouldn't be a distraction to those guys, but yeah, it is. I mean, there's a lot going on. It would make for a compelling compelling content if you could put it all out there. But yeah, it's changed quite a bit. And
Andy, he has the face though that would make for an awesome thumbnail on Netflix, right? The man who sees.
Yeah, I'm envisioning the Netflix doc or maybe the HBO show where it gets dramatized, where you tell some of these stories to the screenwriter, and then they sort of change the names and a couple little identifying details, and we get the show that's about like a whole 10 episode season. It's about football, but we never see a football game because it's all about the drama going on behind the scenes.
Matthew McConaughey could play Jim, and Jonah Hill could play me. I don't know who would play you in this documentary, but
yeah, it used to be Gary Sinise. I used to get fat Gary Sinise, but I don't get that anymore.
Jonah Hill's lost a lot of weight actually, so I'm feeling pretty good about it. Like he's like,
there you go.
All right, fine. Go
well,
ahead.
Jim, let's talk about some of the guys that we do think are in their final year of college, who may be headed to the NFL next year, and about some of the stuff they're doing, because like we got this huge game this week, Penn State and Ohio State in Happy Valley. Like, what guys are you looking at close in that game?
Oh, dude, like the whole Ohio State roster. I mean, that's going to be one of those games. I mean, there's a handful of games every year where scouts are just really dialed into it because you got NFL matchup, good on good everywhere you look on the field, whether it's, corner deep, corner wide out or O-line, D-line. I mean, shoot, the entire Ohio State front four could be here in Mobile, should be here in Mobile. The second level, there's linebackers, there's DBs. On the offensive side, they've got 2 running backs. They got the quarterback. They got basically the whole offensive line. Unfortunately, Simmons got hurt. He was our top rated offensive lineman when he got hurt.
Wow.
So that was a bummer. But yeah, it's just a great matchup. In Penn State, I mean, not to leave that, they've got a ton of really talented dudes too. They've got running back, quarterback if he comes out. I mean, Tyler Warren, their tight ends, playing as good at the position as anyone in college football. Tons of dudes on defense. So it's going to be a fun one. Have they picked a kick time yet for that? Is that going to be like a nighttime
It's
whiteout
noon.
night? Oh, it's noon?
Yeah.
Oh,
Bro.
what are we doing?
Yeah,
What
I
are
don't
we
know what
doing,
we're
Big
doing.
Ten?
No one
Come
knows
on.
what we're doing. TV money.
We've been complaining about that on the show all week.
No,
Yeah.
good. Yeah, let me
not a
pile on
whiteout.
then. That's a terrible decision.
Jim, when you were breaking down these guys, because you just mentioned a lot of the, it's just funny to hear you say like the entire Ohio State roster and then them not looking that great as a team right now. Like when you are breaking down these players, I mean, how often do you feel like you get a sense for how games are going to go? And with a specific matchup, and this is kind of a 2-part question, without Simmons, Ohio State has a tackle problem right now, and they have Penn State's got a few edge rushers on their team that can wreck a game. What do you see with this game from a talent perspective and how these two teams match up together?
Yeah, so again, we're at that part of the process where we had our scouting meetings last week. We're on these calls with the NFL teams right now. We were talking about it up there. I mean, if you just go NFL talent in what schools have the most players, I mean, we just counted 13 guys from Oregon that could be here. And someone, one of the young guys on staff made the point, well, like, yeah, it makes sense. They're really good. So it usually matches up. I don't know if that's what you were asking. I mean, you watch these teams. I mean, usually the teams with the most NFL prospects are the ones that have the best teams. In terms of this matchup on the offensive line, yeah, that's a big blow. I mean, I think they kicked Donovan Jackson out to tackle. He's obviously one of the most highly rated guards. I don't think he's getting out of the second round. We would have invited him last year as a junior, and I think he wanted to come back and see if he could be a first-round draft pick. But he's not a pure tackle body, and he just doesn't. I mean, he's more of a guard skill set. So that's going to be a tough matchup. And you're bringing Andre Carter off the edge and all those guys. So it's going to be tough. But how they manage that? Do they, keep a tight end in, things of that nature? It's certainly got to change what you can do, because you got, to me, in our opinion, the best tackle in the draft. You can just set him out there and let him do his thing and dance in front of people all game. You don't have to worry about it. It certainly changes what Ohio State has to do.
So Will Howard was a guy that you guys were paying attention to last year as a potential guy you'd have in the Senior Bowl coming out of Kansas State, going into the NFL. He goes to Ohio State. What have you seen from him this year in terms of growth development?
Yeah, he was actually the guy I called Will the morning he was getting on the plane to go to Columbus, and I was calling to invite him to last year's Senior Bowl when we realized we weren't going to get Jaden Daniels. So, but yeah, I think he's had a nice year. Like even the Oregon game, I know that he got slammed a little bit for that last second clock management. That was a rough scenario, man. Like he was trying to get down. I get it. I don't think the NFL is going to blame him at all for that loss. I thought he played really well. I mean, what he's shown, I mean, he's a better athlete than people give him credit for. I think he's shown a lot of poise. I think he's shown leadership, like, being kind of thrown into this team. And he's been accurate. I mean, that's what we liked about Will all along, is that he's been accurate, and now he's got more people out on the perimeter than he ever had at Kansas State. I mean, it's basically the Ben Sennett show last year when he was at Kansas State, and now he's got, all these guys on the outside that he can throw the ball down the field to. So I think you've probably seen that more than anything. It's just more downfield throws.
I have to be the one that asked this, Andy. You knew it was going to go this way. So when Penn State landed Drew Aller, I thought that this was going to be a very important thing for that program, having a potential first-round draft pick type body, type, prospect reaching the ceiling at Penn State. That program could go to heights that it hadn't gone to before. We're not 100% sure what his playing status is going to be on Saturday, but through film breakdown of what he has turned into and who he's been for Penn State, what do you see on film with him? And, are we talking about a person that can play themselves into the first round?
Yeah, I think he's been more consistent. I hope he plays. I mean, it's been I think everyone is well aware that follows kind of the narrative of Penn State football and Drew's career is that you want to see him on these big stage games. I mean, everyone points to Ohio State and Michigan. So, man, I hope he can play. Really pulling for this kid. I don't know if I'm like a lot of fans that saw the Tom Rinaldi piece on game day a couple years ago. I mean, I'm kind of pulling for this guy, but he's been really consistent. And that's been a good thing. I mean, I think they've done some nice things offensively. I mean, certainly getting Tyler Warren more involved this year. I mean, last year they had Tyler and Theo Johnson, and they've done a really good job of getting Tyler Warren the football and making plays. So this would be a big one for him. Can he play his way into the first round? Yeah, I think this quarterback class is up for grabs, right? And selfishly, in the seat that I sit in, I mean, that's kind of how I look at the position. I hope none of these guys run away with being like a top 5 NFL draft pick, sometime in November, like Jaden Daniels did last year. We thought we had Jaden Daniels, and we kind of lost him there during his Heisman run. So, for us, this year is shaping up really good for the Senior Bowl, because you've got a group of quarterbacks that, regardless, we haven't got on these calls yet, but I've talked to enough guys over the course of the fall in the NFL. The teams are all over on this group. And Drew's not even Drew's kind of the outsider because he is the junior. There's a bunch of guys that have exhausted their eligibility right now that, there's 6 or 7 of those guys up at the top, and there's no consensus on them. And then you throw Drew in there, and that's, a 7th or 8th guy. So yeah, I mean, could he play his way in the first round? Absolutely. He has those kind of tools. There's no question.
Is Kyle Shanahan going to crawl across broken glass to take Tyler Warren? Because it feels like he's like you crossed Kittle and Juszczyk and melded them into one human being.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of teams, and I'll say this for Tyler, man. Like we invited him last year. We sent the invite, and we got Theo, and I thought Theo really helped himself down here in Mobile. But Tyler has come back, and I think with obviously, with all the targets, I mean, certainly the numbers look different. He's just there's a heavy volume right now, which is great. He looks more athletic than he has in the past. I mean, some guys do that. Some guys make a jump production-wise because they get schemed better or whatnot. And then some guys come back the next year and they just look a little different, even athletically. And I think Tyler Warren's moving better. I think he's smoother. I think he's changing direction better. He looks a little quicker, is a route runner. And the league's going to love the guy because, everyone that goes through the school, they rave about the makeup of the guy. He's like the true blue collar tight end that everyone's looking for. But he's not like the blue collar, overachiever athlete. Like he's got some niftiness to him. He's good with the ball in his hands. So yeah, I would think Kyle Shanahan and a few other guys will be excited to get their hands on Tyler Warren.
Jim, as a overarching question that isn't necessarily about Penn State and Drew Aller, but kind of, I find it fascinating that it's so hard to predict which college quarterbacks turn out to be great pros. Like we have a really hard time with that. And the thing that keeps me up at night, and please give me a key in if you think I'm nuts, but Kyle Shanahan is a name that Andy just mentioned, is probably known as the best offensive mind in the NFL right now and a quarterback whisperer and all that stuff. And they drafted Trey Lance in the top 5, and then they drafted Brock Purdy with the Mr. Irrelevant pick in the final pick there. How do you get to a point where that mind is wrong about their first pick, doesn't play that guy that was drafted last until he has to because of an injury, and then he turns out to be a guy who leads him to a Super Bowl? How good are you guys at actually looking at the talent in college football and knowing which ones are actually going to hit in the NFL, and why is it so hard for people to figure it out?
Wow. I'll try not to be long-winded. This is a hard answer. I'll say this.
Well, I just think it's so fascinating. It's like you can't, I watch college football. Andy watches college football. There are so many great great college quarterbacks who just stink in the NFL, and some that come out of nowhere that turn out to be the greatest. And I feel like it's random. Yeah,
I'll try to go in a couple different directions on this. I mean, one, Trey Lance was a big projection, right? Just coming from the FCS level, that's a significant jump. And then on the flip side, we've all tried to figure out the Brock Purdy thing because I missed on him too. Like we invited Tyson Bagent to the Senior Bowl that year because we felt like the league needed to see a Division II kid. And that's bad on me. We should have, maybe not in place of Tyson. Tyson's doing great. Maybe we should have invited Brock instead of somebody else. But when you look into Brock's background, I mean, the guy played a ton of football. He lifted a program up and got them to play above kind of their level. So there's that's that. I think when you break down these college quarterbacks, the biggest thing is trying to find transferable skill sets in like throws that really matter. I always tell our young scouts that you can throw away probably 85% of the throws in college football and really just dial down into, muddy pocket throws where you're throwing under duress, and then tight window throws. And ideally the combination of those two things, because that's the NFL. You got to operate in chaos. I mean, we watched the game last night and Daniel Jones is running for his life and Russell Wilson's all over the place. I mean, it's a chaotic position at the next level. It's really hard, especially for young guys that are getting drafted and thrown in on a bad football team right away. To me, that's the selling point for Shedeur Sanders this year, is that we've seen him operate under those circumstances. So to me, he's going to thrive. He's going to be fine. You talking about a guy that's going to translate, I would probably feel as good about Shedeur as anybody in this class. So yeah, I think it's those things. You watch college football, and most of the time those guys are sitting back there patting the football and they're throwing it. The guys are wide open. And you can't look at the numbers. You can't look at the stats. I mean, there's a lot of college quarterbacks that are like 40 touchdowns to 4 interceptions. Like that's just not realistic. So again, this is we could do a couple hour show on this, but to me that's the thing. And then I think the last thing that the league really seemed like they were dialing into this past draft cycle was the adversity piece and how these guys handle it. Not to name names. I think we can a couple guys probably pop into our minds right now, but think of over the last, 5 years of some of these early round quarterbacks that haven't worked out. And it's because they've faced some adversity and they've struggled with it. We just today, Anthony Richardson looks like he just got benched in favor of Joe Flacco. So we'll see how Anthony Richardson handles that. A lot of these guys haven't handled adversity. It's been really easy all the way through high school, all the way through college. Now, when I was with the Seahawks, that was like our first question. Every player we interviewed, it was, tell me about the roughest thing you've ever been through in life. Okay. How did you handle it? How did you get through it? Who did you lean on? I don't feel like the league was doing that so much with quarterbacks. Like we were doing that with D linemen and corners and wideouts. But I felt like through this draft process, especially here in Mobile, because I was, walking around the interview stations and talking to guys about stuff. That's why, like Bo Nix, who battled through some real adversity going from Auburn out there to Oregon. I'm trying to think of some of the other guys that transferred, and there was a couple of Michael Penix is another guy that battled through some adversity. So I think the league is dialing down into that because it is a hard league. You're going to go through some crap, and do you have it inside you to get through that? And so again, I think the league is continuously trying to figure out why they're missing. And I think that's the latest thing they've landed on is that we need really mentally tough guys that can gut through the tough stuff.
Another QB I wanted to ask you about, because you mentioned guys that have played a lot of football. Like Cam Ward has played a ton of football. He's now at basically his third level because he's been in Incarnate Word, then Washington State, now Miami. You guys have all this film of him against different level competition with different level teammates. Like, what are you seeing from him now?
You're seeing a guy function in more of a pro style offense. And I will just say this, it sounds like a cop out, call it whatever you want. He was a really hard eval at Washington State last year. I mean, what he was doing, he was playing mostly off script. And that's why I've called it, he has a Houdini quality to him. I know that's a really dated reference. Not many young people know who Harry Houdini is these days, but he had some magic to him, and that's what you liked about him. You saw him running around and buying time and in making a lot of great improv plays. But this year, you wanted to see him play more from the pocket and more on script and on schedule. And I think we're seeing that. You know, Shannon Dawson, the OC at Miami, has done a great job. He's done great things at a lot of places he's been. We had his quarterback from Houston, Clayton Tune, in the Senior Bowl a couple years ago. He did really, really good things with Clayton. So you're still seeing some of those magic plays from Cam Ward those are what we all see on Twitter, right? Like him escaping the pocket and sidearming a ball 30 yards downfield on a rope. And that's great, but we are seeing him play more on time, which is, to me, where the league is feeling like he's made his jump. So, yeah, I mean, a year ago at this time, we didn't invite Cam Ward to the Senior Bowl on these calls that we're on this year. A year ago, most teams had him in the 5th and 6th round. So he's made up a lot of ground. He's we'll see how high he's going to get. I think that's going to be, to me, one of the most fascinating things in this year's draft is knowing where teams had him a year ago and where at least some in the media are projecting him now. Where does it end up in April? Where does he end up? But he's certainly Miami's rolling. There's a lot of guys that are playing good ball. I just got a text from a scout today that's in the building there and was hitting me up on a couple guys at Miami. So they've got a lot of guys playing good football.
Jim, one of the more fascinating players in college football this year is Travis Hunter, right? Because he not only plays both ways, he plays the entire game both ways. And I was listening to a podcast or read it somewhere that, the completion percentage of balls thrown his direction when he's on defense is like 60%. And his completion percentage when he's on offense is like 87%. And like, he's like doing things that we haven't seen, winning offensive and defensive Big 12 player of the week, all these things. What do you see on tape from him? And like, honestly, what position does he project to in the NFL in your mind?
Yeah, you'd like to see him cover himself, right? How cool would that be to see Travis Hunter cover Travis
Probably
Hunter?
do it if we're being honest.
It's like the only guy that could shut himself down. Yeah, he's phenomenal, man. In terms of, I saw him a couple years ago. I was really fortunate. I got to go up to Jackson State, and Coach Sanders had me come up there and speak to the team that year, and so I got to meet Travis and I met Shador. Really impressive young guys, and they were freshmen. So it's been cool to kind of watch him. And yes, he's a phenomenal athletic talent. What he doesn't get credit for is exactly what you said. This guy's going both ways full time. I mean, the stamina, the toughness, the competitiveness, the focus, right? Like some guys struggle focusing as part-time players. And you got to be dialed in as a corner. So like all those other things to me is what really makes Travis Hunter exceptional. In my mind, there's other great athletes in college football, but I would say in terms of his position, if it were me, I think he's going to be great on either side. I would play him at corner, and then I would spot play him on offense at the next level. I do think you can get, just like they did with Coach Sanders when he played in the NFL, you're going to be able to get Travis Hunter some touches on offense. I think some of these, you brought up Kyle Shanahan. I'd love to see what Coach McVay in St. Louis would do. Like some of these creative people that, the Detroit Lions right now are doing some really cool creative stuff. to have this guy on defense and then flip him and get, try to manufacture 5 to 7 touches a game out of this guy on offense. That's where I would go. That's where my head, at least right now, that's where my head would be if I were an NFL team.
Now, Jim, before we can let you go, you know how this works. I have to have you educate the people about somebody at a smaller school who's blowing up, who they're going to hear a ton about in the spring. So can you tell everybody about David Walker from Central Arkansas?
Yeah, so he was our defensive player of the week this year, Central Arkansas guy. Had a lot of, I was texting with his coach, Nathan Brown, last night, and I'm like, can I put it out there? Like, what were the offers this guy was getting? Was it, P4 stuff, was a group of 5 stuff, and it was both. He could have went and got a lot of places and made a lot of money. I think I put his stats out there, 72 tackles for loss and 35.5 sacks or something over his last 4 years. I mean, this is
3 forced fumbles in his last game.
Yeah, 3 forced fumbles. I don't know if I've ever seen a game with 3 forced fumbles. That's kind of what made him the player of the week. But he's an undersized edge guy, kind of a tweenerish build, 6'1.5", 260. But just to boil him down, he's got really natural rush talent and he's relentless. He can beat you in a lot of different ways. He can run around you. He can dip around you because he is a shorter guy. So he can kind of get around you that way. He can cross you up. And then his motive just never stops. I mean, the play that I posted last night on social media, I mean, that's just an effort play. That was like an old school Michael McCrary from the Baltimore Ravens, like scurry on all fours, like just to make a sack type of play. He's a really cool player, man. I mean, he's going to translate. He's a 6-year guy. He played D2 football out of high school. He's kind of worked his way up. But I don't care what level you're at. If you know how to rush and get to the quarterback, most of those guys figure out how to do it as pros. And I put it out there last night. I think he's going to be the first sub-FBS defensive player drafted. I think the first sub-FBS offensive player there's a tackle at William and Mary. And then there is a guard at North Dakota State. And those 2 guys will probably be the offensive player. And I would think David Walker would be the defensive guy.
Well, if you want to see David Walker, go to Jim's Twitter feed. It's at Jim Nagy _SB. And if your eyes don't bleed from Central Arkansas's field, which is alternating gray and purple, you will see some amazing football.
And Andy, I'm glad you made that point. There's only one other school that has harder tape to watch. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of the blue turf. I try to
Eastern Washington, right?
Eastern Washington will make your eyes bleed. I mean, it's Michael Roos Field. Michael Roos was a great player, and I know he donated all that money to get his name on the field. But man, it is so hard to watch Eastern Washington home tape. We try to watch all road games when it comes to Eastern Washington guys.
Actually, one more, because you did bring up the blue turf, and I have to ask you about this guy because he's having a historic season. But from a scout's perspective, we're looking at Ashton Genty's numbers and just like, whoa. But when you guys watch Ashton Genty run the ball, is that the same feeling?
Yeah. And I'll say this, like I'm not going to sit here and, try to sound like super scout or anything. I mean, we really liked this guy over the summer. I compared him to LaDainian Tomlinson, and I hesitate to do that. It's a really lofty comparison, especially in the pass game is where I saw LT. And we have a scout on our staff this year that was with the Chargers when they drafted LT. And I asked him, I'm like, do you see it? I'm like, am I the only? He goes, no, he certainly compares. And he went and watched him play live against Oregon this year. So what he's doing right now isn't a surprise. I've said this. I think he plays his position better than anybody else right now is playing their position, maybe outside of Travis Hunter. I think those would be the 2 guys I would put into that category in terms of across college football. So yeah, he's going to be a phenomenal player at the next level. I mean, the run skills are great. He's got great contact balance, and he's just cool bouncing off stuff and ripping long runs off, and that's fun. But it's the pass game stuff to me that really makes him different.
Jim, thank you so much. We are going to start writing those scripts. We're going to get McConaughey on the line. We'll call the Texas
Jonah.
Athletic Department, just ask for the Minister of Culture and be like, listen, we got the role for you. Thank you so much.
All right,
Appreciate
fellas.
you, Jim.
Good to see you. Good to see you, Ari.
That is the great Jim Nagy, Executive Director of the Senior Bowl. We love when he comes to visit. He's probably going to be back in a couple weeks to help us parse what is going on in college football, because there's some titanic games involving lots of guys who are going to be very draftable prospects next season. Now, I want to have a little draft because I want to use your questions in Dear Andy and Ari tomorrow. So we've gotten some good ones. We could always use a couple more. You know how to find us. I'm at Andy_Staples on all your various social media platforms. Ari is at Ari Wasserman on all your various social media platforms. You can email me, AndyStaplesOn3@gmail.com if you have a truly epic question, and there's a couple in there already. Very excited to get to. We love it when you help drive the show. Also, we have a very special guest tomorrow. We're scheduled to record with the man, Paul Feinbaum. We had the king of the North, Doug Maurice, last week. Well, now we get the emperor of the South, Paul Feinbaum. All tomorrow on Andy and Ari on 3. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. We see what you're doing. We see you telling your friends. We appreciate it. We'll talk to you tomorrow.